with a word from Crow 777.
Hello all, this is Crow. I'd like this time to ensure that no masks need to be worn where you're at. Too bad more people don't do that. By the way, thank you to David Weiss, who recently made a video standing tall in public like an adult and dealing with the key about it even now. But I'd like to wish you all a happy, healthy, and higher-minded new era. In my view, as convinced as I can be that as we come through the low point of the sun this year, we'll be in the new era, represented by air, which I guess probably relates to why they're trying to force everyone to breathe their exhaust all day. It could be defined as, I believe, the one we're leaving with water ideas. Now the crypto is going to be transmitted through the air, but the new era, if I am correct in what I suspect is going on here, is going to be all about I know. And if that is true, then what you all engage in will make a larger difference with each passing day. If in fact we're entering the I know era, then a lot of the nonsense we all contend with in this time of change will diminish over time. But anyway, I want to wish you all the best, and there it is, man. Cheers.
So, 2 years ago, we started realizing in a major way that things are being manipulated in a very huge way in our society. But generally speaking, it's the manipulation of our society in a very large way, isn't it, right? So, the literal definition is the use of centralized planning in an attempt to manage social change and regulate the future development and behavior of a society. The county's unique blend of opening and do. We talk about this cat a lot. Of what's used today. Advertisement is a big thing that's used in, but believe me, it could be used in much more deadly ways. And here's the man himself saying what he thinks.
And propaganda got to be a bad word because of the Germans using it. So what I did was to try to find some other words. So we found the word Council on Public Relations.
45 seconds says it all, doesn't it? Propaganda became because I think it's pretty obvious that's what happened. The space age can be said to have begun on October 3rd, 1942, with the flight of Wernher von Braun's first A4 or V2 missile, a rocket. They were then used for the bombardment of London, with a total of 1,054 rockets reported to have struck England between September 8th, 1944 and March 27th, 1945. So the very first thing that these rockets were used for was evil. Meanwhile, Wernher von Braun survived fleets of Allied bombers that devastated the rocket test complex. He also survived arrest by the Gestapo for defeatist statements about Germany's chances of winning the war. He was said to have been charged with advocating the building of interplanetary spacecraft. Southwest, carrying with them crates of rocket data. On May 2nd, 1945, they surrendered to the advancing American troops near Austria, finding the German team remarkably cooperative. The U.S. Army transported 115 of the captured experts and 100 V2 rockets to New Mexico to continue rocket development and high-altitude research. So the United States, of course, got a huge leg up right there from all that work being done. So here we have the first cog being put into place because we have an interesting fellow named Willy Ley, and he was a German-American science engineer. He also fled Nazi Germany, but in 1930, in American science fiction magazines, beginning with the dawn of the conquest of space. In that same magazine, he had published a science fiction short story in the 1962 anthology, fandom as well, attending a science fiction convention, and was eventually a guest of honor at PhilCon 2, the 1953 World Science Fiction Convention. The crater Ley, that's spelled L-E-Y, on the far side of the moon is named in his honor. So this guy started injecting the concept of manned spaceflight very early on. Here's a few of his things. This is his book he put out, The Conquest of Space, a 1949 speculative science book written by Willy Ley and illustrated by Chesley. The book Oh no, Wernher von Braun wrote 2 books, in fact. The Mars Project is a non-fiction scientific book by the German rocket von Braun. Technical specification. Technically comprehensive design for such an expedition. The book has been described as the most influential book on planning human missions to Mars, which they're still trying to figure out today. And who does that, by the way? Well, the second book that Dr. von Braun put out is Project Mars, and this is a science fiction novel written by von Braun in which he incorporates his technical data from the Mars Project with a human storyline. It is a tale of human space exploration, but based on the science that it was directed by 10 men, the leader of whom was elected by universal suffrage for 5 years and entitled Elon and his cabinet. Its main purpose was not action, but rather to assure the continuity of the basic thought and legislation, as also protection of that thought. So, kind of a thought loop sort of thing going on there. So, with those things being put into place, rockets started being a thing. And one of the earlier things I found is this entertaining little trailer of a serial 1949.
Wrecks their plans by his heroic action. Rocket Man. Bringing you a screen full of pulse-pounding excitement. There's only one answer. Jeff King must die.
Yes, but how? We've already tried a dozen ways to kill him.
There's one way we haven't tried. Listen to this. Yours is the wealthiest city in the world. I want that wealth. If you fail to meet my $1 billion ransom demand by Wednesday at 2 p.m., I will destroy New York City.
All right. Very silly, I know. But these things were definitely getting to become part of the culture very early on. Next, we move on to Tom Corbin, Space Cadet. These early space age stories were depicted in television, radio, books, comic strips, and other media in the 1950s. So it's covering all bases that really anyone, children of course, but anyone really might pick up. The stories they were pushing this stuff so early on. All right, next we move on to Destination Moon. This was released in 1950, and it's the first major United States science fiction film that dealt with the practical scientific and engineering challenges of space travel. Its premise is that private industry will mobilize, find 58.
Please come back.
70, 60, 50, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7.
We're stuck here. Who got me here? I didn't
Notice
want
they're
to
not bouncing around all slow.
blame me, Joe. I could have blown my brains out and gone over Niagara Falls in a barrel and found some other decent way to die.
Quick, the New York Times.
All right, I think we get the point with that one. Next is what I would call very direct evidence of interrelations.
Yeah, sorry if it's buffering. Not much I can do about that. I'm connected to authentic intense Wi-Fi.
The majority of the American public
It's a good
was
signal, but
skeptical that manned space
I don't know
flight
why
was a
it'd be
possibility.
buffering.
And increasing public interest in space travel and proof in New York City. The symposium brought together leading physicists. What do you think? So here we go. Here's a picture from that. In the center we have old Wernher von Braun. On the right is Willy Ley. So they were all teamed up on this. On October 12th, 1951, the first U.S. symposium on space travel was held in the American Museum of Natural History's Hayden Planetarium in New York City. This event was one of the keys in introducing the United States public to the idea that human spaceflight was a serious possibility. Willy Ley, a science writer and spaceflight advocate, coordinated a group of speakers for the first symposium. Ley said the time is now ripe to make the public realize that the problem of space travel is to be regarded as a serious branch of science and technology. The obvious question is then, what will come next? At the symposium, Ley predicted that one day rockets would carry people all the way to the moon. Wernher von Braun, who would later head NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, made convincing presentations on spaceflight that won the attention of on June 6th of 1960. But here we are. This was the first major 1952 to 1950 Wernher von Braun's plans. More about man to space, and the last being, is there life on Mars, and can we get to Mars? The article series would be the basis for 3 episodes in the Disneyland anthology series, Man in Space, Man in the Moon, and Mars and Beyond. The series was expanded to 3 books, Across the Space Frontier from 52, Conquest of the Moon from 53, and The Exploration of Mars from 56. So here we go. They are, in a huge way, getting this out into mainstream publications for a long time. All right, Journey into Space. This is when stuff really started kicking into high gear in the 50s. Journey into Space is a BBC radio science fiction program written by, originally for
Jeff Morgan in operation stands the rocket ship that is about to carry Jeff Morgan and his crew to the moon. Beside Jet, the captain, there are Stephen Mitchell, engineer, Lemmy Barnett, radio operator, and Doc Mack.
Space. By the early 1950s, American society was enthralled with the idea of human space travel. I wonder why. However, the United States government seemed to feel more this stuff. Following the success of the Collier's magazine series, another initiative commenced. A joint effort with the Walt Disney Company, which led to a short film entitled Man in Space. Man in Space is a 51-minute-long film combining documentary footage and animations illustrating concepts relating to space exploration and travel. The film formed part of the Disneyland American television series from Good Nielsen ratings. The film was well received, which led to 3 more films, Mars and Beyond, and Outer Space. Because of Disney, outer space and space travel was now a permanent part of space culture. Who doesn't love Tinkerbell, right?
Walt Disney's Disneyland.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are.
Frontierland. Tall tales and true from the legendary past. Tomorrowland. Promise of things to come. Realm. Fantasyland. The happiest kingdom of them all. Presenting this week.
Here to introduce you to this.
In our modern world, everywhere we look, we see the influence science has on our daily lives. Discoveries that were miracles a few years ago today. Many of the things that seem impossible now will become realities tomorrow. One of a man's oldest dreams has been the desire for...
I think it's safe to say visiting with Wernher von Braun at Redstone Arsenal, Huntsville, Alabama in 1954. So they were chums right from the beginning. But television is not the only place, and radio and all that, which is a subgenre of pop.
I didn't even know you could stream live. I think I have like 5 or 6 people.
Composers and songwriters in the space age.
Well, it says that, but when I go to my YouTube,
That's actually what they call it. They call it the space age. It is also called bachelor pad music or lounge music. Space age pop was inspired by the spirit.
so I'm going sideways for a second.
Optimism-based.
It says 0. I mean, I got some people in the chat, but I don't know. Yeah, the signal is kind of bad.
Although there is no exact album date or year when the genre was born, its heyday is generally thought to be roughly 1963. And this Run album is what I opened up the presentation with. But here's another quick example of it. Not exactly what we would consider spacey age today, but chill, right? Alright.
Hey,
Conquest of Space.
you
1955 American.
you done using that neck thing?
Yeah.
Because I didn't even expect to stream today.
Concerns the first
Yeah, can I use that?
manned by a crew of 5 that launched from Earth orbit near the Moon, mankind's first space station. Now, the wheel is a concept proposed by Braun, so again,
Hold it down if you want to make the options go away. Like just long press if you want to bring up options and make them go away.
Okay. How do they make it go to like public?
There should be like an options like tap it or something like that. And then settings.
Turning about the world every 2 hours.
I think I backed out.
Serving a double purpose. An observation post in the heavens, adventure of mankind.
You know what? You have to press. Are you streaming right now?
Yeah, I think so.
So go back to.
First Man into Space. It's an independently made 1959 British American black and white science fiction horror film produced blah 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 blah.
Stream info.
Can't get enough of space.
Stream info. And then you can change the title, description, who can see it. And then you hit save.
The entire world awaits the countdown that will send the first living person sparkling into the unexplored mysteries of the universe.
And this.
Gonna get a more stable platform. Ted's helping me out. I have one of these, but like I said, I didn't expect to be streaming, so I didn't bring it with me. It's back at the Airbnb. Bear with me, guys. Hang on.
That sounds crap on that one. All right. Next we have Destination Space. This is a 1959 American science fiction television film. It was produced and written. All right, so.
I'll have to freaking.
These space stations look anything like the ISS.
For there are no boundaries beyond his dreams, and no dreams he may not ultimately make come true. Destination, space.
Bloody hell, was there anything else on in the 1950s besides space shows? Called Googie architecture. This is actually a shot from the Jetsons, which I'm sure you've heard of. And it's a type of futurist architecture influenced by car, culture, jets, the space age, and the atomic age. It originated in, if you're familiar with the decade stuff that Crow and I have done, it is very, very, very obvious that once the 70s, yeah, we're done with that. McDonald's got in on the action. So I would say the space age thing kind of got into everything. Here's some interiors. I actually think these look pretty badass myself. Especially that one. Here's just an example of a radio using the same architecture. A clock. Target the most, at least for the future, is the children. And that's exactly what did happen. Here's The Adventures of Tintin, Destination Moon and the Explorers on the Moon. This ran from 1950 to 1953, so again, very early on. Here's the Lindgren line of 5 spaceships of the future model set that came out in 1957. Looking this up. There's that. Disney's little contribution. I love this one, the space helmet. I don't know if anybody's really familiar, but way back when they used to do a lot of these little clubs and things like that for kids to make them feel part of a radio show or television series, that kind of thing. That is a way to draw on the minds for sure, because not only are you giving them information, you're making them feel like they're part of it as well. And I'm not saying everything is a conspiracy and everything is for ill reasons, but if you want to draw someone into something, make the poll begin October 4th, 1957. But, of course, you couldn't see something the size of a beach ball. So, if you ever see anything saying, like, I saw Sputnik, no, you didn't. Here is the beginning of the social engineering on CBS News, though, to really, really pound that home.
CBS Television presents a special report on Sputnik 1, the Soviet space satellite. Douglas Edwards reporting.
Until 2 days ago, that sound had never been heard on this earth. Suddenly, it has become as much a part of 20th century life as the whir of your back satellite as it passed over New York earlier today. One of the places where the progress of the satellite is being watched most closely is the Hayden Planetarium.
Dome of the Hayden Planetarium in New York. And I have with me Dr. Kenneth Franklin, an astronomer on the planetarium staff. Dr. Franklin, can you tell us where the Sputnik is now and how it's moving?
Right now it's north of Auckland, New Zealand, and moving southeast. It will be in 10 minutes.
Let's just say this. Whatever really what's going on, and that's the Imagineers. Every way, shape, or form, they're trying to tell you what's what. And I'm trying to get the point across to as many people as I can, is that, as my friend Crow says, space is misdescribed. The first Tomorrowland opened at Disneyland on July 17th, 1955, and they pushed these concepts long and hard. And I'm going to leave you with a track from my favorite band that was absolutely an influence in the space age, the Pink Floyd, a song called So needless to say, space age was everywhere in the 50s and 60s. And that's going to do it. I tried to keep it short but sweet. Hopefully I made the point. But if anybody wants to talk about anything or ask me any questions, I am very happy to do so. Anybody want to talk about anything, or shall I bow?
It just seems that we're wondering how it politically, and all this propaganda during the McCarthy. And I know Walt this in general, very polite being saying. And the other thing I was saying, a lot of Germans were associated with it. And I see that, but you know, it's obvious Nazism. But I see that a lot of this propaganda goes back into the 19th century and some of this early stuff, not just early 20th century. It was the Germans putting out a lot of propaganda throughout the 19th and 20th century that were influencing others. I just, by way of analogy with another book, the Egyptian origin, meaning, I think the subtitle of the book is on American and British and understanding that changed Americans in Western ancient world. But anyway, the point of it was German propaganda, its influence to change people's understanding, to falsify the thing, create a brand new reality.
Right.
Ancient, how do you say, there's ancient writers like Herodotus and others.
Nobody back there can hear you. Nobody back there can hear you. And that's why I came forward, because I was like, why is it quiet? Nobody can hear you.
Do we have the mic to pass around again?
Zulu, where'd you take the mic? I didn't take it anywhere. Come on.
So you're over. Where they brought all the Nazis over for the rockets and everything. That wasn't the only thing that the United States government got out of Nazi Germany. They learned a whole lot of stuff out of that. Combining that with the stuff that Bernays was doing, that's why the propaganda got so good and why it cranked up so hard in the 1950s. People were absolutely being convinced that communists were, what do we got? We got communism, we got the Red Scare. But at the same time, they're batting people down with all that. We see that they are hitting in with all this stuff. Same thing today. You can go through every decade, as I love pointing out on Crow 777, that every decade kind of has its thing, and they've got their way of getting to the masses. Whatever decade it is, they hit on a topic or several topics, and they pound home the propaganda they want. But what else did you want to say about that?
No, I was just saying brief. I was just talking about the two things, the influence of Germany historically, because a lot of that propaganda, Werner von Braun, and a lot of the names were Germans in the origin. Going back to the 19th century, there's books I mentioned that science to historical understanding and whatnot. And the other thing was that historically, that he said that Werner von Braun, the founder of the founder of NASA, was a member of the SS and whatnot. So, yeah, just the Germany's involvement in this, and in general, there's it seemed to me, you could comment on it. There's seems to be a objective.
I can see you now. It's good.
Time was JFK, and in many ways you kind of think, okay, what was he really all about in the midst of this? Because he really had an awful lot to do with the space race and all that, and I wondered what your opinion.
I know that in this day and age, and for a long time, really, humanity is touted as this big white sheet. If you get to the level of presidency, you may not agree with everything that the higher-ups are pushing, but you had to go along to get along, or you'd never get there in the first place. And anybody can find just completely non-conspiracies. Look at what his father was involved with. Like they were tied in with a whole lot of naughty stuff. So I'm not saying that he was did push the space race at a very. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
This kind of doesn't have anything to do with space at the moment, so I'm sorry about that. But I don't know if I'm going to get to talk to you later. Could you give me a list of books that I could research? As far as going to your podcasts with law, just like
okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a long list, just a short list of something that I can start researching.
Sure. Yeah. We've been doing a lot of stuff on the lawsuit. It doesn't have to be a space question either. I'm open to whatever. I mean, we've done 260 some episodes on Crow 777 Radio, so we cover everything. If anybody wants to talk about anything besides space, I'm cool with it. But you should give me your email address, and I'll get a little list together for you. Anybody else want to talk about anything?
That were all space. I was bombarded with it. And how they're targeting the children. Well, I was definitely targeted. Where are they targeting the children now? It's definitely not space.
right? It's like hope, we're going to the stars, that kind of thing. Not today, man. That was everything. You've got to fear everything and everyone. Stay 6 feet apart, put a muzzle on your face, don't sneeze, don't cough, don't laugh, don't do anything, because you can get sick. And quite honestly, I'm sick of it at this point. I'm really, really sick of it. I've been 8 months of bullshit.
I just want everybody to know I just flew in from New Jersey, and I went the whole way. I've been doing NASA since the nonsense started, and all it takes is to get kind of pushback.
As I said in the beginning, folks, we're in the greater truth community. And you know, let me say something else, because Mark Sargent came on my weekly live stream with the great Baldini and Wayne McCroy, who are very close friends of mine. And I got a little pushback from some people saying, Mark Sargent, why are you bringing him on? I'm like, why not Mark Sargent? What's wrong with Mark Sargent? Seems like a really nice guy to me. And you know what? We had a killer science fiction, like a Blade Runner kind of thing. And I forget if it was 5 points or 6 points or something like that that is considered a dystopian reality. And by the end, we all decided together, like, yeah, all but 1 point, we are living today with the nonsense, with all the beer bug crap, that this is indeed a dystopian reality. So yeah, I had Mark Sargent on, and I'll do it again. He's a great dude. Thank you, Mark, for coming on with us. A friend of mine wanted to know if Crow does. That's not really my big forte. I'll see if I can get you an answer on that, though. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you very much for your attention, folks. I hope you have a good time.
We're done. Thank you, Jason. Big round. All right, we have another little patch of break time before we move on to our next speaker, who is going to be Mr. Mike Williams. I almost said the wrong name. All right.
Jack. That was pretty cool. Got Bob up there. So, like I said, I really did not plan for streaming at all, but since I can, I'll do a little bit of it. But I'm not. Any of you mods can link that. Some more content later. But you know, I'm not gonna make any promises. As tuning in, I'll hang out for a little bit, maybe like 5 more minutes, just so you guys can see what it's like to be here, where there's a break and you can kind of mingle with people. And then I guess I'll cut it out a little bit. So come along with me. Hey, Bertek, what's going on, man? Here. Hey, what's up?
Are you streaming?
I am. I didn't even know I could. Hey, how's it going? I'm Alex. Nice to meet you. You know my channel, Critical Inception? Well, now you do. I'm streaming right now. You're on it. Kind of do like a route through Streamlabs instead of your phone. So under 1,000 subs, you can. Oh yeah, that's gay.
Again, we're in a weird spot right now, where right now they're thinking about cracking down on just about everybody. And
yeah, it's getting intense.
I'm not kidding though. I said, don't worry about flat Earth, because if it happens, all of them are gone. I mean, it won't even be able to be a clean sweep. If all of a sudden they decide to make flat Earth just add it as a category, I hope they don't. I mean, we've been so positive. And you know, nobody's doing super controversial stuff.
Like the flag getting knocked over, that happened in Space Force on Netflix.
Right. Yeah, Netflix.
China knocked over the flag, and then the moon landing movie that hadn't been done yet, and then they did they did First Man.
They steal stuff.
Yeah.
They absolutely steal stuff.
They're watching you.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, you have social media access. You just punch it. It's like, what are the flat earthers talking about? Use the content. It's like, hey, that's not a bad. I mean, of course, not everything's a gem, but use what you know.
And then End of the World.
What?
Your book, End of the World.
Yeah, you know, I'm a little sorry about that one. It's been where it's like, did we polarize everything?
Yeah.
Did we do super twitchy out there? And you say, well, it was the government did this. Yeah, but who was the ones that got the government to finally start moving forward with this stuff?
I think it has to do with something with our energy, our thoughts, our intentions going into the ether.
Yeah.
And just making changes.
Yeah.
Like, we're not even really doing it phically, but it's just happening.
Put it out to the universe. How many examples of people out there that have gotten, you know, what you want, but what you need?
Yeah, so that's why already.
Yeah,
we're too big.
No, we're too big, and I can't get mad at them because they promoted us so aggressively for 3 years straight. I mean, having YouTube, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, promote your topic for 3 years straight. You know, with $1, you can't buy that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't care how rich you are, you can't buy that, and they did. I mean, they just kept promoting. He was the guy that said, I don't remember saying, because they asked him.
Everyone, just so you know, I don't think I announced it earlier, but there is a raffle that's going to happen at the end of the night for this computer system that's set up right here that's streaming Flatoberfest. Yes, this computer system that's sitting right here that is streaming Flatoberfest comes with a monitor, the desktop.
By any chance have just a regular PC power? One trip I didn't bring my laptop. Oh, okay. Because I was traveling. I mean, literally, this is my bag. That's it. We're looking for one for doing a camping experiment. Everybody's got to have it. It's the world's most common power cord. Well, you know the app. That one. There you go.
Okay. Yes. Oh, they did.
And where they asked and they said, why do things get recommended to me, recommended for you on the right-hand side? And you know how many topics there are on YouTube? 10,000 more, right? So many topics. Every topic in the world, right? Everything from engine maintenance to how to cook a turnip.
Yeah.
Right? He brought up one topic, exactly one. And he goes, well, if the average person who gets into Flat Earth for the first time watches 20 videos in a row, what do you think we're going to recommend?
Right.
And we're not going to just recommend it to him. You know, we're going to recommend it to all sorts of people. We became this binge watch. So they just kept promoting us for 3 years. They were doing this, and then finally, they backed off. And you know, Jaren's crying censorship, and other people are censorship, right? Because they, you know, the Senate committee,
right?
Like, well, we're going to recommend YouTube. You know, when the U.S. government says they're going to recommend YouTube less, that's kind of a big deal.
And they put a little box.
Yeah, they put a little box, and they did everything they could, but at the same time, they didn't ban it. And that's because it was still, you know, a big thing for them. And they said, it's censorship. And I go, no, they weren't channels that had 20 people for stocks. You know, everybody covered Flat Earth. There's still huge checks, but the censorship that's rolling out now, that's a whole different. I'm meeting with, I won't give out his name, who's saying, not a big shot. Yeah. That is, look, there's money, not money for us, but there's platforms that can replace YouTube. That's what YouTube's always worried about. They don't want to become MySpace. Remember MySpace? That was a thing. And then it wasn't a thing.
Apparently it still exists. It's just a little different.
Oh, yeah. Well, nobody's on it. Yeah. But YouTube, that you got to be really careful, because if YouTube's super heavy, I mean, all it takes is, you know, a billionaire startup. Now, if YouTube makes that final move to start, you know, making it super sanitized, like, look, America Online did that. That didn't work out well for them. Other companies tried to sanitize, try to make it Disney friendly. No offense against Disney, but I mean, you know, G-rated doesn't apply to the world.
Yeah.
It's not a G-rated world.
Well, now we have Alex. He spent like thousands of dollars on hard drives and everything on his setup. So true.tube.
Oh, sure.
That's where you can find all the videos.
BitChute has gotten a lot of play. You know, I mean, my stuff has been, I haven't done it. You know, people have done it for me. They've just taken the videos and sort of ripped. You know, we've already gotten everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, the Netflix documentary, they're not pulling that down.
We've got about 350 people here, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, no, and I mentioned the thing up front. I said, if Carol shows up, why? Because you have
No, I was just curious.
He never confirmed, and I'm pretty sure he would find me. I'm guessing he looked like a pirate.
You think he's gonna look like a pirate?
Well, you know, he's Navy, he's older.
Same with his game.
After this, because
Can't miss it.
Bob's wrapping it up at 6:30, and then hi. Are you looking for me?
Just trying to say hey.
Hi.
I'm Randy.
I'm Mark.
We're known as the Mojo Shop.
Nice.
Hi, man. It's a great chat.
Yeah.
See you around.
See you, man.
Give you a hard time, you know.
That was pretty cool. Hanging in there through the stream. I'm not sure if mobile hotspot, and you know how that is. He's taking his data from the cell phone towers or whatever, and I don't think that's as strong as Wi-Fi. I'll do what I can, but again, thank you for joining in. Shout out to everybody. Jack, Ricardo Montalvo, True 2, Hornet, Vertec, Chris Jones, you guys are the best.